The dusty streets of Dodge City shimmer in the afternoon sun. A pair of worn leather boots shuffle through the wooden doors of the Long Branch Saloon, and the imposing figure of a lawman casts a shadow longer than any other. But behind that 6'7" frame that dominated television screens for 2 decades, what price did James Arness truly pay for becoming America's most beloved marshal? How did a shy, wounded war veteran bear the weight of being the face of the longest-running drama series of its time? And when the cameras stopped rolling, what untold pain did the man behind the badge carry with him until his final days? Stay tuned, because by the end of this story, you'll know exactly what really happened to James Arness, and how his stoic suffering shaped not just television history, but the man himself, right until his passing in 2011. Let's dive in. For 20 years, Americans invited him into their living rooms each week. Marshal Matt Dillon, the unwavering protector of Dodge City, Kansas. Tall, principled, and seemingly indestructible, James Arness became more than just an actor playing a role. He became the embodiment of American justice in the Wild West, a cultural touchstone that defined an era of television. Gunsmoke aired for an unprecedented 635 episodes, becoming television's longest-running primetime drama series with continuing characters until Law & Order surpassed it decades later. But while audiences saw the steadfast lawman who could outdraw any outlaw, few understood the real man behind the character. A war hero who carried both visible and invisible scars. A reluctant star who struggled with fame. And a complex individual whose life story contained triumphs and tragedies that never made it to the small screen. Born James King Arness on May 26, 1923, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, his early life gave little indication of the cultural icon he would become. The son of a businessman father and a journalist mother, young Jim grew up in the heartland during the Great Depression. His Norwegian-German heritage gave him his towering height. He would eventually reach 6 feet 7 inches, and his childhood was marked by outdoor adventures on the lakes and woods of Minnesota alongside his younger brother Peter, who would later change his surname to Graves and find his own fame in Mission Impossible. Young Jim was no academic star. He was more interested in the outdoors, hunting and sailing on the state's abundant lakes than sitting in a classroom. His towering frame made him self-conscious, a trait that would follow him throughout his life despite his later fame. The tranquility of Minnesota life changed dramatically when World War II erupted. Like many young men of his generation, Arness answered the call to service, enlisting in the U.S. Army in 1943. He had dreams of becoming a fighter pilot, but his height disqualified him from that role. A cruel irony that his imposing stature, which would later make him perfect for television, initially limited his military options. Instead, he served as a rifleman in the 3rd Infantry Division. During the invasion of Anzio, Italy, in January 1944, Arness's life changed forever when he was severely wounded by machine gun fire. The bullets shattered his right leg, particularly his foot and shin. After multiple surgeries and almost a year in hospitals, he was honorably discharged with a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. But he also left with something that would never appear on his service record: chronic, debilitating pain that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The wounded young veteran returned to Minneapolis with an uncertain future, his dreams redirected by the realities of war. The road to Hollywood wasn't one Arness had mapped out for himself. Working as a radio announcer in Minneapolis, his deep, resonant voice caught attention. But it was a chance encounter that set him on the path to stardom. A friend suggested he try acting, and with few other prospects that wouldn't aggravate his leg injury, Arness decided to follow his brother Peter to Los Angeles. His first jobs were humble. He worked as a carpenter and salesman while trying to break into acting. His imposing height made him stand out in a town full of aspiring actors, but it also typecast him. Early roles came in science fiction films like The Thing from Another World in 1951, where he played the alien creature, hidden under makeup. Small parts in westerns followed, where directors appreciated his authentic outdoorsman skills and natural horseback riding ability. Though few knew that each time he mounted a horse, he endured significant pain from his war injury. The pivotal moment in Arness's career came through another Western icon, John Wayne. The Duke had been offered the role of Marshal Matt Dillon in a new television series called Gunsmoke, based on a popular radio show. Wayne turned it down, preferring to stick with film, but he recommended his friend Arness for the part. It wasn't an easy sell. Producers questioned whether the shy, somewhat awkward Arness could carry a series. Wayne believed in him so strongly that he filmed a special introduction for the first episode, telling viewers they were about to watch the best actor I've ever worked with. That endorsement from America's biggest Western star gave the new show instant credibility, but it also placed enormous pressure on Arness's broad shoulders. The year was 1955, and television was still finding its footing as a medium. No one, least of all Arness himself, could have predicted that he was about to begin a 20-year journey that would make television history. When Gunsmoke premiered on September 10, 1955, it quickly established itself as something different from the simplistic westerns that dominated early television. Set in Dodge City, Kansas during the 1870s, the show tackled complex moral issues through the eyes of Marshal Matt Dillon, who maintained order through a combination of toughness and compassion. The chemistry between the core cast members, Arness as Dillon, Amanda Blake as saloon owner Miss Kitty, Milburn Stone as Doc Adams, and Dennis Weaver as Chester Good, later replaced by Ken Curtis as Festus, created a fictional community that viewers came to care about deeply. The show's adult themes and nuanced storytelling elevated the Western genre, and audiences responded enthusiastically. For Arness, the role was both a blessing and a burden. On one hand, it provided financial security and made him a household name. On the other, it demanded punishing physical work from a man with a serious disability. Few viewers realized that the tall, strapping marshal they watched each week was often filming in excruciating pain. The leg wounded at Anzio never fully healed, and standing for long periods during shooting, riding horses for action sequences, and performing stunts which he often insisted on doing himself, took a tremendous toll. Between takes, Arness would often retreat to his dressing room to elevate his leg and find momentary relief. The production schedule was grueling, up to 39 episodes per season in the early years, with Arness appearing in nearly every scene. Yet on camera, no trace of discomfort showed on his stoic face. This was the first of many sacrifices Arness made for the role that defined him. The physical challenges, however, were matched by emotional ones. James Arness was by all accounts nothing like the confident, authoritative Marshal Dillon. In real life, he was painfully shy, uncomfortable with fame, and reluctant to make public appearances. The disconnect between his public image and private personality created significant anxiety. Interviews were ordeals to be endured rather than enjoyed. Public recognition, while flattering, often left him feeling exposed and vulnerable. He developed strategies to cope, limiting public appearances, focusing on the work rather than the celebrity, and finding solace in outdoor activities away from Hollywood. But the pressure never fully abated. As Gunsmoke grew into a cultural phenomenon, Arness found his privacy increasingly difficult to maintain. Here's where it gets complicated. By the early 1960s, Gunsmoke had become the most watched television show in America. CBS moved it from its original Saturday night slot to Monday evenings, where it continued to dominate ratings. Arness was reportedly earning $20,000 per episode, making him one of television's highest-paid actors. But success brought its own challenges. The physical demands of the role intensified as the show continued year after year. The leg pain that had been manageable in the early seasons became more severe with time. Arness rarely discussed his wartime injury publicly, part of a generational reluctance to complain shared by many World War II veterans. but those close to the production knew that he often relied on pain medication to get through filming days. The demanding schedule also took a toll on his personal life. His first marriage to Virginia Chapman in 1948 had given him a stepson, Craig, whom he adopted, and two biological children, Rolf and Jenny. But the pressures of his career contributed to the marriage's dissolution in 1963. Later that year, his adopted son Craig died of drug-related causes, a devastating loss that Arness, characteristically, grieved privately while continuing to fulfill his professional obligations. For a man who played television's most upright lawman, the inability to save his own son from addiction reportedly haunted him deeply. And that's when everything changed. By the mid-1960s, television was evolving, and Westerns were gradually losing their dominant position in American entertainment. Yet Gunsmoke endured, adapting to changing tastes while maintaining its core identity. The show shifted from its original half-hour black-and-white format to an hour-long color production. While other Westerns came and went, Gunsmoke remained, largely due to the audience's connection with Arness as Marshal Dillon. Behind the scenes, however, the physical toll on the star was becoming unsustainable. Producers began to work around his limitations, scheduling scenes to minimize his standing time and occasionally using doubles for physically demanding sequences. Episodes began to feature more of the supporting cast, giving Arness essential recovery time. Yet he remained the show's anchor, his stoic presence the gravitational center around which Dodge City revolved. The most dramatic test of Arness's commitment to Gunsmoke came in 1967. CBS, despite the show's continued popularity, decided to cancel it after 12 seasons. The announcement sent shockwaves through the industry and reportedly reached the wife of CBS chairman William Paley, who was a fan of the show. Legend has it that her influence helped reverse the decision, and Gunsmoke was hastily renewed. But the near cancellation highlighted the show's precarious position in a changing television landscape. For Arness, it created a dilemma: continue with the physically punishing role that defined his career, or seek out new opportunities that might be less taxing on his health. His decision to stay with the show reflected both his loyalty to the production and his uncertainty about life after Marshal Dillon. By late 1971, the toll of playing Matt Dillon for 16 years had become increasingly evident to those who worked closely with Arness. The chronic pain from his war wound had evolved into a complex medical issue. Long hours on horseback and repeated physical stunts had exacerbated the original injury. According to cast members who later spoke about this period, Arness sometimes needed help mounting his horse, a fact carefully hidden from viewers. The production schedule was adjusted to accommodate his health needs, but the fundamental reality remained. Every episode required him to perform while managing significant physical discomfort. Remarkably, none of this struggle translated to his on-screen performance. Marshal Dillon remained as commanding and capable as ever, a testament to Arness's professionalism and determination. The final seasons of Gunsmoke saw a gradual transition. The show's format evolved to include more character-driven stories and fewer action sequences. This shift served both changing audience tastes and the practical reality of Arness's physical limitations. When the series finally ended in 1975, after 20 seasons and 635 episodes, it wasn't because of declining quality or audience interest. It was part of a broader network shift away from rural-themed programming. For Arness, the conclusion brought both relief and uncertainty. At 52, he had spent nearly half his life playing one character. The chronic pain that had been his private burden could now be addressed more fully. But his identity had become so entwined with Marshal Dillon that both the public and Hollywood struggled to see him as anyone else. Now, if you're wondering what happened after the badge came off, Arness did not immediately retreat from acting. Throughout the late 1970s and 1980s, he appeared in a series of Gunsmoke television movies, allowing fans to revisit Dodge City. He also starred in the television series How the West Was Won from 1977 to 1979, playing Mountain Man Zeb McCahan. These roles maintained his connection to the Western genre while offering less physically demanding shooting schedules. Behind the scenes, however, Arness increasingly sought treatments for his chronic pain. The leg injured at Anzio had never stopped being a source of suffering, and decades of working through the pain had created additional complications. According to friends, he explored everything from conventional medical treatments to alternative therapies, seeking not a complete cure, which he knew was impossible, but manageable relief that would allow him to continue working and enjoying life. In 1978, Arness found personal happiness when he married Janet Surtees, who remained his wife until his death. With her support, he gradually reduced his acting commitments, becoming more selective about projects. His last significant role came in the television film Gunsmoke: One Man's Justice in 1994, bringing his portrayal of Matt Dillon full circle nearly 40 years after he first pinned on the Marshal's badge. By this time, Arness had reached a place of acceptance regarding both his legacy and his limitations. The war injury and the years of compensating for it had left him with mobility issues, but he adapted his lifestyle accordingly, focusing on family, his beloved sailing, and carefully chosen public appearances that connected him with the fans who had supported him throughout his career. As of 2011, James Arness had largely retreated from public life. His home in Brentwood, California, became his sanctuary, where he could manage his health challenges privately and enjoy the company of family and close friends. When he passed away on June 3, 2011, at the age of 88, the announcement came with the revelation that he had left a personal letter to his fans to be posted on his website after his death. This final communication, from a man who had always been reluctant to speak publicly, expressed gratitude for the support he had received throughout his career. In it, he acknowledged the special relationship he had with viewers who had welcomed him into their homes for so many years. The letter revealed the private James Arness, humble, thoughtful, and deeply appreciative of the connection he had formed with audiences, despite his natural shyness. The numbers tell one story of Arness's legacy: 20 years and 635 episodes as the same character, a record that stood for decades. Gunsmoke received 5 Emmy Awards during its run, though. Surprisingly, Arness himself never won, despite multiple nominations. At its peak, the show reached over 40 million viewers weekly, numbers unimaginable in today's fragmented television landscape. Financially, Arness's portrayal of Matt Dillon made him wealthy by the standards of television actors in that era, with his per-episode salary reportedly reaching as high as $20,000 by the 1970s. The show's syndication ensured both its cultural permanence and continued financial rewards for those involved. But statistics and awards only capture a fraction of James Arness's true impact. His portrayal of Marshal Matt Dillon helped shape American popular culture's conception of justice, integrity, and moral authority. For many viewers, especially those in the tumultuous 1960s and early 1970s, Dillon represented an ideal of steady leadership amid changing times. What makes this cultural influence all the more remarkable is that it came from a man who was, by nature, deeply private and uncomfortable with fame. A man who endured constant physical pain to create a character who never showed weakness. The disconnect between Arness's public image and private reality speaks to both his exceptional acting ability and his personal fortitude. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of James Arness's story is what it reveals about sacrifice and stoicism. The wounded young soldier who returned from World War II could never have imagined becoming an American icon, much less one known for physical prowess and endurance. Yet for 20 years, he pushed through pain that would have sidelined many others, rarely complaining and never allowing his personal struggles to interfere with his professional commitments. This wasn't just about fulfilling a contract or maintaining a career. It reflected a generational value of putting duty before personal comfort, a trait shared by many of the World War II veterans who helped build post-war America. Arness carried this ethic onto the soundstage of Gunsmoke, creating entertainment that brought joy to millions while quietly bearing his own burden. His story also illuminates the price of fame in an era before celebrity culture fully acknowledged the human costs of being in the public eye. Arness's natural shyness made him ill-suited for the publicity demands that came with starring in television's most popular show. Yet he found ways to balance his public obligations with his need for privacy, establishing boundaries that protected his well-being while still honoring his commitment to the show and its fans. In today's environment of social media exposure and celebrity oversharing, Arness's approach seems both quaint and refreshingly dignified, a reminder that stars once maintained mystery and personal space in ways now nearly impossible. In the end, this isn't just a story about a television western or even about Hollywood. It's about resilience in the face of lifelong pain, about finding purpose despite limitations, and about the quiet dignity of doing difficult work without complaint. James Arness never sought to be celebrated for his private struggles. Indeed, he went to considerable lengths to keep them private. But understanding those struggles adds depth to our appreciation of what he accomplished and the legacy he left behind. For every scene where Marshal Dillon stood tall in the dusty streets of Dodge City, there was a man behind the character fighting through pain to bring that moment to life. As viewers continue to discover Gunsmoke through reruns and streaming services, the character of Matt Dillon remains as compelling as ever. Strong, just, and unwavering. But now you know the full story of the man who created him. A wounded warrior who transformed his pain into purpose. A reluctant celebrity who found meaning in his work despite the personal cost. And an enduring symbol of an entertainment era when one show could unite a nation of viewers week after week. If you learned something new about the man behind the badge, or have thoughts about other television legends whose real lives deserve exploration, share them in the comments below. And stick around. There are more untold Hollywood stories waiting to be revealed.